Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're peeling back the layers of the legendary Oak Island mystery. But listen, we aren't doing it with folklore, rumors, or wild speculation. Nope, we're diving into cold, hard scientific data. We're going to treat this island not as some mythical treasure map, but as a real-life geological detective story. Because as you'll see when you look at the actual Earth right beneath the surface, a completely different, absolutely fascinating narrative starts to emerge.
Let's kick things off by looking at Smith's Cove. Now, if you know anything at all about Oak Island, you know this specific shoreline is ground zero. It's the epicenter of a 200-year-old treasure hunt. This is the exact spot where folks have spent centuries desperately searching for artificial flood tunnels, elaborate booby traps, and, of course, hidden riches. And, it looks so serene from up high, right? But beneath that surface, oh man, it's a wildly complex web of earth, water, and human intervention.
So, looking at that peaceful little cove really begs the ultimate question, the one that's going to guide our entire investigation today. Are we looking at a weird anomaly of nature or a brilliantly engineered man-made puzzle? To actually figure that out, we've got to separate what the Earth did all on its own from what, well, overeager humans did to it much, much later.
Section 1. Carved by Ancient Glaciers, the Deep Earth History of Oak Island.
Okay, to really solve this thing, we need to completely look past the human searchers for a minute and rewind tens of thousands of years to the island's geological birth. See, Oak Island isn't just some random pile of dirt sitting out in the ocean. The deep soil at the east end, it's actually what geologists call a drumlin formation. Basically, it's a giant teardrop-shaped hill that was literally sculpted by moving ice. And it didn't just happen overnight. This landscape was crushed and molded by 4 distinct, massive phases of glacial advance. We are talking colossal, towering sheets of ice grinding right over this exact spot between 12,000 and 75,000 years ago. That unimaginable pressure fundamentally packed and shaped the very Earth those treasure hunters would eventually try to dig into.
And get this, the proof of this deep, ancient timeline is absolutely staggering. When engineers drilled down to sample the Earth, they didn't just hit rocks. They actually found interglacial wood buried 125 feet deep in the soil. And when they carbon dated that wood, it came back as exactly 25,000 years before present. 25,000! That tells us for sure that the deeper layers of Oak Island have been locked in place, completely undisturbed, since the literal Ice Age.
So here's the really crucial takeaway. That deep soil is glacial till, and it has extremely low permeability. Now, permeability is just a fancy way of saying how easily fluids can pass through a material. Because this Earth was compacted by miles of solid ice over millennia, it is unbelievably dense, which means water shouldn't naturally flow through it at all. It's essentially a geologic brick wall. Keep that fact in your back pocket, okay? Because it's going to be absolutely crucial when we evaluate the treasure hunters' claims later on.
Section 2. The Rising Atlantic Waters. Visualizing the changing coastline.
Just think about the staggering transformation of this region over time. Before the ice melted, massive land masses like Prince Edward Island were firmly connected right to the mainland. It wasn't even an island back then. But as those glaciers receded and global sea levels began to rise, the ocean literally flooded in. It swallowed up the lower elevations and created that jagged, island-dotted coastline we're so familiar with today.
In fact, it's wild to think about just how recent some of these geographical features really are. The local Mahoney Bay, which is where Oak Island actually sits, used to be essentially a lagoon. It only fully connected to the open ocean about 6,000 years ago, back when sea levels were still a good 18 meters lower than they are today. So the specific coastline those treasure hunters stumbled upon in the 1800s, it was a relatively modern geological development, one that was constantly being eroded and reshaped by the rising Atlantic.
Section 3. Dynamite and the Searchers. The 19th Century Treasure Hunt. All right, let's fast forward to the 1850s. Searchers digging around Smith's Cove insisted, and I mean absolutely insisted, that they had discovered an elaborate artificial filter bed feeding a booby-trapped flood tunnel. They claimed this whole system was designed to flood the fabled money pit if anyone dared to dig too deep. And they reported finding an incredibly specific, almost bizarre list of materials. Sand and gravel, exactly 2 inches of coconut fiber, 5 inches of eelgrass, beach stones, and 5 distinct box drains. I mean, it paints a picture of a highly engineered, totally man-made water delivery system, doesn't it?
But here's where things get crazy. The sheer desperation to beat this alleged flood tunnel led to completely frantic, tear-it-all-down excavations. These searchers didn't just dig a few holes. They literally tore the environment apart. They built massive cofferdams to hold back the ocean. They gouged out enormous intersecting shafts. And they permanently scarred the island.
Historical aerial photos from 1929 show how Smith's Cove was absolutely decimated by these relentless chaotic operations.
And you know what? The destruction didn't even stop with shovels. By 1897, the Oak Island Exploration Company was so utterly desperate to block the water from this supposed tunnel, historical records show they resorted to some extreme measures. They drilled holes 30 feet apart and started detonating raw dynamite deep underground right there near the shore. They were quite literally trying to blow up the subterranean earth just to stop the water from flowing.
When we look at a forensic breakdown of their operation, it reveals a battle plan that was, frankly, chaotic. Records show that in 4 of their test holes, they drilled down 90 to 95 feet, found absolutely no water, but still decided to set off 50 to 75 pounds of dynamite in every single one. Just boom. But then there was another hole. When this one actually struck water at 80 feet deep, what did they do? They dumped a massive 160 pounds of dynamite down that shaft and blasted it in a desperate attempt to violently crush the tunnel shut. I mean, they were fundamentally, forcefully altering the underground geology with high explosives.
But hold on a second. If we remember our geological data from the beginning of this explainer, we run into a massive, glaring contradiction. The presence of natural flowing water zones in this specific type of earth is scientifically highly unlikely. Remember, that deep soil is heavily compacted glacial till. It's incredibly dense. Water shouldn't be rushing through it at all, unless, of course, something fundamentally shattered that natural impermeable barrier.
So, after laying out all the cold, hard geological evidence alongside the historical records of the searchers, we're left to ponder a pretty staggering conclusion. Does the true answer to the Smith's Cove flood tunnel mystery lie hidden in ancient, naturally impenetrable glacial till? Or is the water rushing through the earth actually the direct result of those chaotic, frantic excavations? The shafts, the cofferdams, and the literally hundreds of pounds of dynamite detonated by 19th century treasure hunters. Did they actually create the very booby trap they were trying so desperately to defeat? It's a massive question, and it completely changes how you look at the entire Oak Island mystery.